So we got the majority of the place cleaned up. I got enough room to work now. Be able to walk around and get tools and stuff. The Green Machine is finally getting its ADA lockdown kit, the third bearing, and a different spindle. Because I don't think the one on here, it is not shaved down enough to fit inside the third bearing. So what we're gonna do is, let me get the gas tank and fender off of this so you can see how the stock motor is mounted. We'll go over what comes in the kit for the ADA third bearing and lockdown assembly, and then we'll go over how to put it on the machine. Let me get this off and we'll get to that. So with the gas tank out of the way, which needs fuel lines now, they're getting pretty yucky. The way the Bigfoot works is there's usually a cable attached to the motor mount over here. It's probably extremely hard to see where the camera is, and it runs up to the handlebars, and there's a lever that actually lifts the engine up off of the tire, like so. And there's supposed to be a spring in there to help with the amount of pressure needed to get the spindle to make contact with the tire. So basically, you pull start it, it's running, you give it a little bit of gas, you give it a push, and you set the motor down on the tire, and that's where your driving force comes from, when the spindle rotates on the tire. The challenge is, the only real pressure that's consistent when you're riding is when the spindle is biting the tire. It's causing the forces to pull together, like this. It causes the spindle to really dig into the tire more. So once you get up to a top speed, what happens with this style mount is it relaxes. Engine vibration actually picks it up. And I think in the last video when I did a top speed run of this, the engine picked itself up, and I had to put my foot back on it to set it back down when I was trying to do a top speed run. So the joy with the lockdown is it sets the motor on the tire, locks it physically at the perfect amount of spindle to tire tension to give you the right amount of friction to not wear out your bearings, or and have the spindle not slip. So let's take a look at what comes in the ADA third bearing kit and the lockdown, and then we'll start tearing this thing down some more. All right, so what we have here is the ADA Racing. It is a third bearing. It is the engine mount. The third bearing's in the middle, and when we open it up, I'll show you the plate can be adjusted. It even comes with what looks like a spindle bolt and a tension spring. So usually you tie your cable to this, and this is your pivot point. This is what moves your motor up and down on a scooter. The reason I really like these lockdowns the ADA has made for us is because you can actually adjust with these 4 screws your motor height, so that way you can actually change the angle of where your engine sits on a tire. I like mine to sit directly on top of the tire. Some people like them to sit kind of in front, some people like them kind of back, and by raising and lowering this mount here, you can kind of achieve those results that you want. They really did a good job on these. This is a pressed stainless sleeve that's pressed in there. All the hardware is stainless. The bearing is from China. Feels pretty good. I never had a problem with any of these bearings. They do wear out, they spin just as fast as the engine does. Paperwork pretty much just shows pretty general. There's actually really old photos in here of their original lockdown assembly that came with these. So it's showing you can either use the lockdown or you can still use the cable. And just pretty standard instructions there. What else we got in here? Knee bolt. We got a tension spring. It looks like a spindle bolt. Side. And this is the lockdown kit. And I really like this lockdown kit because it's got this slot in here that the axle bolt goes through, and this acts like a wrench. So it holds your axle bolt when it's mounted to the machine. And then it's got, I believe, the bolt for the engine, and then the bolt for the lockdown. So I believe this would mount on the scooter. Does it go? I don't know, we'll have to take it all apart. Now this definitely goes to the axle. I don't know. So we'll stick it on there, we'll go over it completely. It's been probably 10 years since I installed one of these. if not longer. Get all this out. Wow, this is definitely different than the last one. Looks like they're actually machining these now and making them themselves. I'm pretty sure they used to buy them from a fastener company. These are good and tight. They got nice brass in there, or bronze looks like, around these spherical bearings. A couple of spacers, some washers, and then of course the nut and bolts for these. All right, let's go take the scooter apart and we'll start bolting this stuff on there and see how it goes together. Okay, so I did make a mistake earlier when I was talking about the spindle that's already on this scooter. As we can look here, you can see there's actually a relief in it, and there's actually some marks in there from it being mounted in a third bearing previously. So when we pop this off, I'll double check, make sure it fits. I really want to run this spindle on this with the lockdown. All right. Let's need a pair of vice grips to hold the spindle, get that spindle bolt loose. I should have did that while I was set up. Why am I special today? Quit drinking coffee recently. I've been getting a lot of brain fog and stuff like that. So I decided to give it up. I felt, and the coffee was like the majority of it, so I'm still kind of getting normal again. My brain fog is definitely gone. It's probably the worst way to remove a spindle, but it seems to normally work for me. Couple of taps, rotate it, a couple more taps, rotate it. She comes right off of there. So on your engine mount, this is your engine side, and this would be the scooter side. And that is sized for a third bearing. All right. I'm probably gonna have to buff this up real quick to get it to really fit in there, because it's ADA puts like the perfect fit for the inside diameter of this bearing and the outside diameter of this here. So get in there. Let's get this motor off and then we'll pull this mount. Let's see if it's even tight. Looks like all the screws are stripped. This table came from a hospital. It's one of those bedside tables. One of the hospitals I work at was giving it away, and I was like, you know, having an adjustable workbench will be handy in many different ways. I didn't know this is tight. This is kind of nice. This screw's even bent. It's like they almost couldn't get it in there, so they hammered it. That's alright, that's easy stuff. Ooh, that was tight. Whenever you're trying to loosen a Phillips head screw, you want to put as much force on it laterally before you try to turn it to get it to pop loose. That way you don't strip your threads. Now, hopefully we can do this, leaving everything connected. Not damaging anything. All right, so now we have just the engine mount left. I believe it's a 14. crescent hammer. Let me get my impact. Can't wait till I figure out how to put like music in my videos so you guys don't have to just sit here and listen to me being boring. I watch a lot of other guys' videos and they're like way cooler than mine. So I'm just happy that we have like the 10 of you that actually watch my videos watching them. So the stock mount, this has a couple of tension washers. They're kind of cupped. Oops. They're kind of cupped to kind of act as a spring to kind of keep this from moving too freely. And on the inside of this, we have a little steel sleeve, which is what the mount pivots on. But pretty much the motor mounts on this side, and this cable is what goes down and picks the motor up, and the spring ties in here to set the motor down. And later on they had coil springs that hooked on here and touched the frame and then really helped you set the motor down. But yeah, that's it. Stock motor mount, just a cheap little piece of stamped steel right on a steel sleeve. This thing's gross, guys. So here's where the motor actually mounts into. And this straw here is where the factory exhaust had a tube that would come down and tie into this. And they had a little black piece of rubber they would wedge in here, and it had a little hole in it, and then this frame acted as a secondary muffler to keep these things quiet. I thought it was pretty cool, but judging by, well, how clean this one is in here, I don't think it's ever had it hooked up. So, oh well. And here's a factory mount for the cable where it would come up to the motor. All right, let's clean this up and then we'll get that thing ready to go in. So, they say this is a puller bolt. I don't remember using this as a puller. They say that you loosen the bolt, like they say at least 3 revolutions, stick it up in there a little bit, and then you drive this bolt in there. I guess it pops the spindle off because it is threaded in there. It's pretty cool. They were onto something there. So I put a little bit of grease on our pin here, just so it doesn't seize up in the future. I'm really gonna keep these washers in here and set this back in where that one came out with the bearing on the tire side of the machine. Here we go. Feed the bolt in on this side, and then this mounting hole here goes to the engine mount here, and then it accepts the washer. Like originally, I believe we don't need the washer anymore. It's been a while since I did this. We need the washer. It's going in there, and then the axle bolt. So we come over and take a look. We got it mocked up. This isn't tight, so it's going to be crooked. That is how the new mount goes in. And then this is how this acts like a wrench because it holds the two flats on your axle nut. So let's get this stuff snug together and we'll continue on. So next we got to put on the tensioner, and it comes with a flat washer, a spacer, and a lock washer. Now we got butterfingers, lock washer, flat washer, and a spacer. I think. Oops. So if I can put this together backwards, it'd be wonderful, right? It's like a burr in there it's hanging up on. Get Dinsey out. Come on. You can do it. Basically the way we're putting this together is we're doing lock washer and then the flat washer and then a spacer at the whatever side is billet. Oh, both of these have a burr in there, but it's kind of hard to deburr small parts like this. So there's the lockdown in all of its glory, right? And these spacers here and here are to help keep the adjuster straight. And by adjusting the adjuster, moves the motor mount either up or down. That adjusts our tire tension. So I'm going to snug up this, and then we'll put the spindle on and everything else. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to put blue Loctite on everything. This way when it's assembled, it's a done deal. Not really a done deal. Red would be a done deal, but I mean, I ride mine enough to worry about things coming loose. If I were to ride this thing like every day at the grocery store or something, I'd probably put red Loctite on there. But I literally ride these as much as you guys see on my videos. I don't really ride all my stuff that often. Even my motorcycles have a layer of dust on them. Just work too much. I'm going to blue Loctite all these bolts. I'm going to set the engine on. The spindle is just sitting inside this bearing, and what ADA says you got to do is you pretty much set the spindle in there, and then you torque the 4 engine mount screws tight, get the engine seated first, and then you use the bolt to drive the spindle against the engine. It basically presses the spindle into the bearing. ADA did a really good job making that fit perfect. And I'm not going to use the engine mount screws we took out because they were damaged. I'm going to use these Allen heads. They're a little more user friendly. You can use Allen heads on air tires like this. You can't really use them on the spindle drive sports because they will they'll hit the tire because if they stick out too far. But blue Loctite on everything. What in the world? I'm struggling today, guys. Problem is I haven't been working on my scooters enough lately to not struggle. I can't even mount this dirty engine in this clean motor mount. But whatever. This engine ain't gonna be on here forever. I got some plans for this thing in the future. Some cool plans I hope you guys will like. Why is this one not aligning with the engine? JetPro did a good job. The JetPro pipe does not interfere with this at all, as I can see. It looks like just one hole. The offset's just a little bonkers. Maybe that's why that screw was bent. So just one hole screwed up. Whatever, cross-threading works better than red Loctite, so that's what we're gonna do. It's not cross-threaded, it's just the hole's a little off. That's all. You could probably take a drill bit and punch the hole out, but I'm just gonna go get a socket with a 4mm on it. Really cause some damage, huh? I think 88 Racing said 8 foot-pounds for these motor mount screws. I don't really have a torque wrench. It goes down to 8 foot-pounds. I think mine starts at 25. But we're not going to torque them. All right, drive bolt. Boink. Oh man, that pulls that in there so nice. Hi. Oh, don't fall over. Spindle in frame. Kind of watch it as it just pulls that right up to that bearing. Oh man, I really have to go too much farther, but I called you. I don't know what it is with this GoPro and falling off stuff, but it's been pretty constant lately. My tripod's a little silly. Sorry. Okay, anyway, use the spindle bolt to pull your spindle in, so that way it goes in straight. I'll snug this up again, and then my strippers. All right. Let's see, that's PFT. I'm rubbing an engine mount screw. That's okay. Anyway, I think I want this engine to sit pretty much straight up and down on this tire. I mean, a little on the front side might be good. I'm not sure what the advantage of that would be. 13. So we'll see where this ends up when we start making contact with the tire without lowering the engine mount. Adding tension. I'm gonna leave it with just a little bit of slip. Oh Jesus. I might take a little bit of slip out of it because when the tire heats up, it becomes a little bit more sticky. And then the adjustment is really easy to get to down here, so we'll just adjust it if we need to after it's together and we can ride it. But that's pretty much it for your lockdown kit. You just snug up your last nut. But because that tension is where I like it, or the engine is straight up and down where I got tension on the tire, I'm gonna raise the motor back up, pull the wheel off, tighten these mounts, and then replace my fuel lines. And as soon as it's warm outside, we'll ride this thing. There's my cheesy install for the lockdown kit.